Imagine getting the exact raise you've been dreaming about, or winning enough money to pay off every debt you have. For a moment, you'd feel incredible. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Research shows that within a surprisingly short amount of time, your overall happiness would likely return almost exactly to where it was before. This isn't just a nice saying people repeat to feel better about not being rich. It's a genuinely well-documented psychological pattern, and understanding why it happens reveals something strange about how your brain actually processes reward. So why doesn't money deliver the lasting happiness we're so convinced it will? The answer involves a psychological phenomenon called hedonic adaptation, a shifting sense of what feels normal, and a brain that's constantly resetting its expectations without you even realizing it. What makes this pattern especially frustrating is how deeply counterintuitive it feels. Logically, more money should mean more options, more security, and more freedom. And in some ways, it genuinely does. But the emotional payoff people expect from that increased freedom almost never matches what actually happens once the initial excitement fades. Let's start with hedonic adaptation itself, sometimes called the hedonic treadmill. This is your brain's tendency to quickly return to a relatively stable baseline level of happiness, regardless of positive or negative events that happen to you. Get a big raise, and you feel amazing initially, but within weeks or months, that new salary simply becomes your new normal, and your brain stops registering it as anything special. This happens because your brain is fundamentally wired to notice change, not maintain constant awareness of your current state. The first time you experience something new and positive, your brain releases a surge of feel-good chemicals, but repeated exposure to that same stimulus causes your brain to adapt, requiring something even bigger or newer to trigger that same intensity of reward the next time. This explains why lottery winners, despite instantly becoming wealthy, often report happiness levels within a year or two that aren't meaningfully different from before they won. The money is still there. The bank account is still full, but the psychological thrill of having it has largely faded into the background of everyday life. Some studies have even found that certain lottery winners report increased stress in specific areas, dealing with sudden attention from distant relatives, navigating complicated financial decisions they've never had to make before, or feeling pressure to maintain a new lifestyle that quickly starts to feel expected rather than exciting. There's also a related concept called lifestyle inflation that makes this effect even stronger. As your income increases, your spending and expectations tend to increase right alongside it. A bigger apartment starts to feel necessary instead of luxurious. A nicer car becomes the new baseline instead of an exciting treat. Restaurant meals that once felt special become routine. This creates a subtle trap. Your reference point for what counts as normal keeps rising to match your income, meaning you can end up feeling exactly as financially stressed or unsatisfied at a much higher income level as you did at a lower one, simply because your expectations climbed just as fast as your paycheck did. Comparison plays a massive role in this pattern as well. Human happiness with money isn't primarily determined by an absolute number in your bank account. It's heavily influenced by how your financial situation compares to the people around you. Research consistently shows that people often feel happier earning a moderate income in a community where they're doing slightly better than their neighbors, compared to earning significantly more in a community where everyone around them is even wealthier. This means your brain isn't really asking, "Do I have enough money?" It's constantly asking, "How am I doing compared to the people I'm comparing myself to?" And in a world of social media, where you're now comparing your life to millions of curated highlight reels instead of just your immediate neighbors, this comparison trap has become dramatically harder to escape. This helps explain why genuinely wealthy people can still feel financially anxious or inadequate, simply because their reference group has shifted gifted to other extremely wealthy people, rather than the broader population where their situation would look remarkably comfortable by comparison. There is, however, an important nuance researchers have identified. Money does appear to meaningfully increase happiness up to a certain point, specifically when it lifts someone out of genuine financial insecurity. Being able to reliably afford housing, food, health care, and basic safety removes enormous chronic stress from daily life, and that stress reduction genuinely does improve overall well-being in a lasting way. Beyond covering these essential needs and providing a reasonable cushion of security, though, additional income appears to produce steadily diminishing emotional returns. Going from barely making ends meet to financial stability creates a massive happiness boost. Going from already comfortable to significantly wealthier tends to produce a much smaller, less consistent effect. Interestingly, how people choose to spend their money seems to matter more than how much money they actually have. Research suggests that spending money on experiences like travel, shared meals, or memorable activities tends to produce more lasting happiness than spending the same amount on material possessions. Experiences become part of your identity and memory over time, while material objects are subject to that same hedonic adaptation, becoming ordinary background items faster than most people expect. Spending money on other people also appears to boost happiness more reliably than spending it purely on yourself. Something as simple as buying a meaningful gift for someone or contributing to a cause you genuinely care about seems to activate a different, often more sustained kind of satisfaction compared to typical personal purchases. This pattern shows up remarkably consistently across different studies and cultures, suggesting it isn't simply a coincidence or a nice-sounding idea, but something tied to a genuinely different psychological reward system than the one triggered by ordinary consumer spending on yourself. This all points toward a deeper truth about happiness itself. It was never primarily about the absolute amount of money sitting in an account. It's about security, meaningful relationships, a sense of purpose, and constantly comparing your current situation to a rapidly shifting baseline that has an almost unlimited capacity to adjust upward. Understanding hedonic adaptation doesn't mean money is worthless or that financial goals don't matter. It simply means recognizing that chasing an ever higher number, expecting it alone to deliver lasting happiness, is fighting against a deeply wired psychological pattern that has operated the exact same way across nearly every documented human culture and income level ever studied. Perhaps the more useful question isn't how much money would finally make you happy, since that number tends to keep moving no matter how high you climb. It might be worth asking instead what you'd actually do differently today with the resources you already have if you stopped waiting for some future income milestone to finally feel satisfied. If this changes how you think about your own relationship with money, let us know in the comments what your experience with this has actually been like. And if you want more surprising truths about how your brain actually works, hit subscribe for more, because the psychology hiding behind everyday assumptions like this one is often far stranger and more revealing than most people ever realize.